Welcome to Pillar 1, Understanding the Nervous System. In this part of the training, we're going to talk about what is the nervous system? Why is it important? What are the key functions of the nervous system? What impacts the nervous system? What are the habits that we can be implementing in our life, right, daily? Emotional habits, physical habits, mental habits. What are the habits that support a healthy, calm, regulated nervous system? So in a nutshell, I'm going to do my best not to get super sciencey in this video, but ultimately we need to understand a little bit about what the nervous system is. And the nervous system, essentially, it's composed of the brain and the spinal cord, and the central nervous system is like the command center for your entire body. So you can imagine that there's just this line of networks that go from the head all the way down your spine, all the way through your body, and it is 100% responsible for receiving and processing, responding to all of the sensory information in your environment. It's responsible for controlling your thoughts, your memory, your movement, your speech, your emotions. Your nervous system is responsible for how you experience life. That's how important it is. And why we didn't have a nervous system training or a nervous system class in school growing up, it is beyond me. But if you're going to take away something from this part of the video, it's that I want you guys to be thinking about developing a nervous system first, everything else second mentality. That you want to start living your life in a way where you're prioritizing your nervous system above everything else so that you can show up with that clarity, with that peace of mind, with that state of regulation so that you can be the best version of yourself. And we're going to dive into all of this today, okay? This session alone is worth the price of admission, which is free because this is YouTube. So the first thing that I want to talk about is there's only two states of being that we can be living in at any given moment. And you might have heard these terms be referred to as parasympathetic nervous system and sympathetic nervous system. But those words are a little bit tricky to remember. It's like, which one is which? Ultimately, I'll give you the brief overview and then I'm going to show you how I'm going to refer to this for the rest of the video. But sympathetic nervous system response is when you're in a stressed response. You've probably heard the term fight or flight. This is the sympathetic nervous system response. This is a primal state. Okay, you're going to hear me refer to this as a primal state. This is when you're stressed, overwhelmed, triggered, angry, upset. This is a primal state. The parasympathetic state, on the other hand, the opposite end of the spectrum is when you're calm. This is the rest and digest state. You're relaxed, you're safe, there's no threats. Okay, we kind of call this a powerful state. So from this moment on, I'm going to call this a primal state and a powerful state. Okay, and I didn't coin these terms. This is the words of, David Baer. He was the one that calls it a powerful state versus a primal state. I think it's genius. I think it takes away the words around sympathetic and parasympathetic, which is the scientific name. But for the nature of this training, I'd love to use the words of David. And primal state, stressed out; powerful state, calm, grounded, and regulated. So what is this primal state, right? So if you're thinking about your life, right? When you are in a primal state, so when you are stressed, when you're in that fight, flight, or freeze state, you're going to have increased anxiety, increased worry, and sometimes panic can even occur, right? So you're going to have an elevated level of cortisol, which is the stress hormone circulating through your body. And the best way I can describe it is that when you're feeling like your heart's racing, you have that tight feeling in your chest, that's the feeling of anxiety, that's the feeling of stress. And when you're in this state, we have weaker immune systems, we have decreased sexual function, we have less emotional control, we're more likely to get triggered, we're more likely to get caught up in addictive behaviors, we might gain weight, we might lose weight, sleep quality goes down. I don't know if you guys have ever experienced when you're so tired, you're so stressed out, you're really anxious, and all you need is sleep, but you can't sleep because your body is in such a state of fight or flight, it's so stressed out that it just can't quite relax, it can't quite let go. Right. And if we're living in this state, a primal state, and if, as I mention these things to you, if you're noticing that most of your life is living in this state, then that's a really good thing to be paying attention to. And throughout this part of the pillar, throughout this pillar, we're going to talk about how do we actually work with the nervous system to get out of the primal state into the powerful state. I just wanted to mention that if you're in a primal state, that these are the negative consequences that is having on your health and your well-being, and that's affecting how you're going to show up in your relationship. And this is all going to make sense. Okay. Why are we diving into all of this? Well, it's all going to make sense as we move through. When you can regulate your nervous system and take care of your nervous system, you're going to be able to show up with a lot more clarity in your relationship. So when you're in a powerful state, you're going to be calm and have clear thinking. You're going to feel grounded. You're going to feel present. You're going to feel relaxed. It's that feeling of safety. It's that feeling of ease. Life's good. You can exhale and take a breath and your body feels really relaxed. This is when you might be more likely to be in close connection with other people. You can let people in. You can be more vulnerable. Creative thinking tends to emerge. And just feeling stable. The other thing that happens as well is when we're in this powerful, calm state, our body language tends to mirror that. So if we're kind of closed and tense and anxious and elevated heart rate, your shoulders are up in your neck. But when you're in a powerful state and you're calm and you're regulated, your body language tends to mirror your internal state. Okay. So ultimately, why is this so important? Why do we want to know whether we're in a primal state versus a powerful state? Why is it that we want to understand that potential downside to being in one state versus the other? Well, ultimately, the goal here is you want to create a better understanding of how you're operating in the world. Like what's actually happening inside of you. It's really about starting to pay attention to the physical signs of the body and what feedback you're getting from your environment. And when you do this, you're going to ultimately gain a greater control over your entire system. You can regulate your emotions down into a powerful state rather than reacting from a triggered, stressed out, overwhelmed, burnt out state. This is going to allow you to improve your relationship big time. You ever notice that the fights always seem to happen when you're just in your lowest capacity state? When you're the most tired, you're the most stressed, it's 10:30 at night, you have no emotional control. That is when you're going to say the things that you wish you didn't say. So we want to work to make sure that we're taking care of our nervous system. We're going to dive more into how do we do that. Okay. So before we dive into that though, I want to talk about what actually impacts the nervous system. Well, stress and anxiety. So the level of stress you have in your life. How much are you doing? Are you busy? Is there a lot of demands at work? That's going to have a huge impact on your nervous system. Trauma, also going to have a huge impact on how your nervous system is reacting and responding to the world. Okay, and we're not going to be diving deep into trauma in this video, but if you're aware that there's some trauma in your life, that's going to impact how your nervous system responds to the environment. Childhood patterns. So how were we taught? How were we raised? How did our parents model stress management? Were we safe in our parents' presence growing up as children? Was it a very chaotic environment, right? Chances are if we grew up in a chaotic environment, we will create a chaotic environment in our adulthood. So really this is a good journaling exercise as to where am I at? Who am I? What is my nervous system like on a daily basis? When do I typically get triggered? All of those are really good questions that you want to be asking yourself. And then ultimately, what are your habits? Mental, emotional, physical habits, right? If you're drinking 25 cups of coffee a day and sleeping 3 hours a night, and eating McDonald's, that is putting an enormous amount of stress on your body, which is going to impact your nervous system, which will then what? Impact your relationship. And we're trying to avoid that. We're trying to avoid negatively impacting the relationship. Okay? Gonna take a quick sip of water. So like I said earlier, our main goal is that we want to be adopting a nervous system first, everything else second approach. We want to be designing our life around a powerful state, which means that we might have to start living differently. We might have to start removing some bad habits from our lives, adding in some healthier habits to ensure that, like I said, we're optimizing for that nervous system first, everything else second. That is our main goal. I'm going to say it one more time because I really want to nail this hit, what's the saying? Like nail this like a hammer or nail the head on the, anyways, forget it. Nervous system first, everything else second. So what I want to do next is I want to dive into what are the areas of healthy habits that support this powerful state? And I've got it broken down here into physical, mental, and emotional. So what are some actual physical habits that contribute to a healthy nervous system, to a lower stress response? So we want to be having consistent sleep and wake times, limiting screens before bed, eating regular healthy meals, staying hydrated, reducing caffeine, sugar, and alcohol, incorporating daily movement. This could be yoga, 10,000 steps, working out, stretching. It doesn't really matter, right? Incorporating some breath work, some meditation into our routine to reduce stress, time in nature. There's also a lot of talk about sauna and cold plunge. I mean, I do it regularly. So cold plunging is really good for stimulating the vagus nerve, which is directly connected to bringing our nervous system regulation down. And the other thing I want to talk about is your environment, right? Creating a calm sensory environment. So if your space is an absolute mess, if it's a disaster, I recommend trying to do your best to organize your space, clean it up, get some different furniture, think like what's actually calm. Like when I walk into a space, how do I want this space to feel? I painted these walls black because I find that it's really grounding. It reminds me of like the rock, like you're in like the earth, right? We live here in Squamish, British Columbia, and we live up against these big granite mountains. So when the rock feels really like it holds me, it feels safe. So we want to create a physical environment that is safe and that's soothing. Okay. So the next piece is around emotional habits, right? These are daily emotional check-ins. So a way that a lot of people do this is through journaling, asking themselves, having some prompts like, how am I feeling today? What's on my mind, right? The other thing you can do is you can validate your emotions, expressing your emotions. And this, like I said, it can come in the form of journaling. It can also come in the form of having a check-in with a friend. Maybe it's a therapist, maybe it's a coach. This might even look like just allowing yourself the space to cry. If you're feeling upset, if you're feeling overwhelmed, pour a hot shower, pour a bath, like lay down. I've laid down here on this couch thing before and just put a blanket over me and just giving my space to feel whatever it is I need to feel. And this also means potentially prioritizing emotionally safe relationships. So if you're around other people that are stressing you out, their negativity is bleeding over into your life, maybe they're just complaining, they're just bitching all the time, then remove those people from your life. They're not contributing to your emotional health. So if you have a bad habit of hanging out with bad people, then it might be a good time to potentially start ditching those friends and getting some new friends. Okay. And then the last area is around mental habits. So this is where more of mindfulness and meditation might come into play. This is like, how do we work on a moment by moment present awareness? So rather than constantly multitasking and switching from all of these different things, let's just focus on one thing at a time. What can happen in this day and age is we're trying to respond to text messages while we're listening to a podcast, while we're cooking dinner, and the dog's doing this and the kids are doing that, and there's a partner and there's all this stuff that's going on. And like I said, our nervous system was responsible for all of that sensory information. So if we're in a really busy field all the time, that's going to impact how our bodies are perceiving it. And, we need to reduce that overwhelm, and we have to override our bad habits and start implementing ones that really create that space. So the other thing you can do is, limiting your exposure to stressful situations or stressful media. Our nervous systems are not designed to be scrolling Instagram or TikTok and seeing war, seeing people die, seeing people outraged. Our nervous systems are not designed to handle that level of stressful information coming at us. So if you notice that you're in a habit of binging things that are stressing you out, pissing you off, creating an emotional reaction, then that is a habit that you need to remove from your life. And you need to think about it like you're owning your own energy field. You're owning what you consume, what you put into your mind, what you put into your environment, and kind of blocking out the rest, being like, these don't serve me. None of these things serve me. Okay? So what I want to dive into is another piece around the nervous system. And ultimately, I've given you guys a good list of habits. I've given you a bit of a brief understanding of like how the nervous system works, but there's another way that the nervous system, I'm just going to pull it up here. There's another way that the nervous system operates. And what I want to talk about is that your nervous system can also push you in and out of a specific state. So this is kind of part 2 of nervous system. So before I was talking about powerful state versus calm state, but even within a powerful state, it doesn't necessarily mean that you're just like calm and happy every moment of every day. So what we can do is we can actually use different tools to shift our current state. We can shift our nervous system state based off of a couple simple practices. So an example of this might be, let's just say it's 2 o'clock in the afternoon, you're starting to feel a little bit tired, right? The caffeine's wearing off, but you've got a 3 o'clock meeting and you're feeling a little bit sleepy. So what we'd actually want to do is in that moment in your life, being in a really calm, kind of sleepy state might not be the best for performing in a meeting or having an important conversation with your partner. We actually need to wake the body up. And we can use our nervous system to it's called upregulation. So things like jumping jacks, cardio, high intensity breath work, cold water. And I'm going to go into these, like things that lift our energy up. Okay. If you're feeling kind of sleepy, 3 to 4 minutes of really intense breath work of throwing your arms around and your whole body is going to be more awake. Your whole body is going to be more alert. So what I want you to get doing too is start tracking your current state moment by moment in your life. Do I need upregulation, right? So intense breath work, sprinting, high intensity workouts, caffeine, cold water, or do you need down regulation? Things like yoga, things like meditation, slow walks in nature, deep belly breathing, things getting under a weighted blanket. So I was having a conversation in the men's program I'm running right now with a gentleman who he works in a really busy, loud environment late at night. And he's talking about how when he gets home from work, 11 o'clock at night, it's really hard for him to sleep, right? Because his body is upregulated, right? He's fine. He's not stressed, but his body is really awake. So he's in a powerful state, but he's up here and he needs to drop down. So what he needs would be like a hot shower followed by some meditation, maybe some like really low lighting, like things that are going to really bring the nervous system down. Whereas if you're trying to wake up for a meeting, right, you want to be doing the exact opposite. You want to be doing things that get the system going. So what I want to do is I'm actually going to walk you through a really quick example of this to show you the difference between how 2 completely different style breathwork patterns can completely shift your entire state up or down. So then you can start implementing this in your life. So what I'm going to have you do is I'm going to take you through a quick breath practice. So you want to make sure that you're seated upright, like I'm sitting right here. You want to make sure that your spine is free. And we're going to be doing a Kundalini yoga breath practice where you're going to inhale and you're going to throw your arms to the ceiling and you're going to exhale through the nose. You're going to pull your elbows down. Okay. And you want to have your, these kind of, you want to have these fingers. Okay. So it's going to be a powerful inhale through the nose, powerful exhale through the nose. Okay, so what I'm going to do is I'm going to start doing this with you. And we're just going to do a 30-second blast, okay? So starting here, inhale up. Good. Inhale forcefully up, extending your fingers to the sky. And if you're driving, please don't do this. If you're somewhere that it's not safe, please pause the video and come back to it. But inhale, exhale. It should be really intense and really vigorous. Good. Another 15 seconds here. Inhale. Good. And in 3, 2, 1, inhale, hold the breath. Extend the fingertips to the ceiling, press down through the hips, ground your energy down, grow tall through the spine. And exhale. Lower your hands down. And instantly notice, okay, I've even worked up a quick sweat, right? 35 seconds of that. My shoulders are fired up. I feel more alert. I feel more awake. So instantly track your state. How do you feel? Right? Ready to take on the day? Great. So to contrast that, I'm going to have you guys close your eyes. And just take a deep inhale through the nose. Exhale very slowly. Through the lips. Eyes are closed. Another deep inhale. And imagine you're just softening all the muscles in the front of your body. Like allow your body to get really heavy with every exhale. So right away, myself included, you might notice how you're a little bit more relaxed, you're more sleepy. So this is the power of the nervous system. So now that we know that, can you imagine how much better you would be as a lover? How much better you would be at communicating? How much better you would be at showing up, not getting triggered, if you're able to slow things down and really control your nervous system? How much better, how much different life would be. So that's a really quick example. So what I want you guys to be taking away from this nervous system section of this video is that when you can learn to really take care of your nervous system, your relationship will change. And I know that we haven't even gotten into anything relationship oriented yet. It's because this is step number one. If you don't take the steps to regulate and master your nervous system, and this takes time, this takes a lot of work. This is less about a thing to master, I guess. It's more about a way of living. If you can start living in a way where you're taking care of your nervous system first, everything else second, then you're going to show up a lot more powerfully in the relationship. You're going to understand your triggers. You're going to understand how to calm yourself down, how to not react. And that's going to impact the rest of the 4 pillars that we're going to dive into today. But I promise you, if you don't, the rest of the 4 pillars don't matter unless you get this one part right. You have to get the nervous system part right, or else nothing else is going to stack on top of it. So if you have any questions about nervous system, then let me know in the comments down below. If you have any questions, be happy to respond to those. Hit me up on Instagram. But that is pillar 1. We need to nail the nervous system, optimizing towards living in a powerful state, because it is going to change everything.